You have your local government, you have your state government, and you have your federal government. The federal government, the leader of the government, is your prime minister, and that prime minister is the leader of the party with the majority in the government. So they have two houses in Australia in the federal government. They have a House of Representatives and they have a Senate. Sounds familiar? But their system is very similar to the British system. So when you look at the lower house, which is the House of Representatives, and you look at the upper house, which is the Senate, the idea of the colors, the green and the red is the same. You have the backbenchers. It's a Westminster system and a Washington system combined. They took the best of both worlds. But both houses are elected, unlike Britain. Okay, both your House of Representatives and your Senate, they are elected in this country. But they're modeled after the Westminster system, but they're both elected houses, and they're both called the House of Representatives and the Senate, just like in Washington. So they've blended Washington and London, Westminster and Washington, they blended together. The leader of the government, it's very much like the British system. It is the party with the majority in the House of Representatives. Their leader, their party leader, becomes the head of the government. So the head of state is the Governor General, and that Governor General is the Queen's representation in this country. Now, on the state level, you also have two houses, House of Representatives and the Senate, so the same thing. And you do have a governor. The governor is the Queen's representative in the state. So not an elected official. Like the Governor General in the nation, you have a governor in each state. The Premier is the leader of the government, and the Premier is the head of the party with the majority, or the head of the coalition with the majority in the government. Yeah, so it's very much like the Canadian system, the British system, but here in Australia they've combined Washington and Westminster. They've taken the best of both worlds. And again, they decided, there was huge referendum in 1901 whether they were going to become a federation of states, and overwhelmingly they selected to become a federation of states, and that's when they had to choose a capital, and Melbourne became the capital from 1901 until 1927. And then in 1927 the capital was ready, the temporary Parliament House was ready, and that was in Canberra. And so Canberra's been their capital since 1927. Their present Parliament House is a very modern, contemporary structure, glass and steel kind of structure. That was opened in 1988, which, incidentally, 1988 wasn't an arbitrary date. That was 200 years of European settlement of Australia. 1788, the first fleet, and we'll talk about that when we get to Sydney, because that was where the first fleet came in. But many years ago, you might remember now, going back 15 or even more years ago, maybe more than that actually, it was more than 15 years ago, probably closer to 20 years ago, they put a referendum to the people whether they wanted to become a republic or stay part of the Commonwealth. And there's always talk here about becoming a republic, and the same thing happens in New Zealand, where they want to leave the Commonwealth and become a republic. There is a connection with Britain and Australia, because like Canada, like the Bahamas, like they're all part of the Commonwealth. But Australia is an independent country, so their government works independently. They pay no taxes to Britain. They're just a member of the Commonwealth. You know, it's kind of a prestigious League of Nations, if you want to say. So they really do. Other than the Queen being the head of state and having her representative here, they're an independent country. But there are a lot of Australians that have talked about, well, and this comes up quite often, about a referendum about leaving the Commonwealth and becoming a republic. And when that was all coming about 2 decades ago, the Queen came for a visit, and she wished them all well. She said, whatever you do vote. There will always be that link between our two countries, that common bond between our two countries. We will always be great friends, and I wish you well. But when it came time for the polls, really kind of what happened in the referendum, there was a bit of ambiguity about were they going to have a president and a prime minister, kind of like Ireland has, where the president is the head of state and the prime minister is still the head of government. There was talk about would the flag change? Would they take the Union Jack off the flag? Would the flag change? And there's still a lot of people here in Australia that flag is what they've fought for decades, for different campaigns, and there was still a lot of people tied to that. But also with a lot of immigration coming into Australia, there are a lot of people from Asia that don't have the connection to the Union Jack. A lot of people have come in from places like Italy and Greece that don't have the connection to that. And also in the 1980s, you had lots of people coming from the area of the former Yugoslavia, from that area, and so it's changing. And so will that come up for public referendum again? Probably. New Zealand just had a referendum just last year about whether they were going to change their flag, and they cost them millions of dollars, and they're keeping the old one. But there was a whole referendum on that in New Zealand, and Australia faces the same thing. Do they want to be independent and recognized independently and have a republic, or do they want to stay part of the Commonwealth? And it was interesting because you would think that maybe it was an age thing, where maybe the older people wanted to be part of the Commonwealth and younger people wanted a republic. But no, it was very mixed in all right across age groups.